On the exact date, the 26th of May, 2025, precisely at 5:45 in the morning, a Ukrainian pilot entered the cockpit of a multirole MiG-29 fighter jet. That very Soviet aircraft, which at the time of its creation could not even theoretically imagine it would one day carry French-guided bombs under its wings, directed via American satellite navigation and Ukrainian software strapped to the cockpit with plastic zip ties. And yet, that is exactly what happened. Just a few minutes later, this aircraft, built back in the mid-1980s, was headed toward one of the most heavily guarded targets on Russian territory, the building of the Federal Security Service in the city of Glotovo. It was a target that had, until then, remained out of reach. The service, once evolved from the Committee for State Security, had always been perceived as untouchable, protected by a shell of secrecy, patrols, and unofficial understandings that such facilities are not to be attacked. But from that moment, everything changed. The mission seemed insane even by Ukrainian standards. The pilot had to sneak in at an extremely low altitude, literally skimming treetops, to avoid detection, then sharply climb to 5,000 meters, drop the bombs, and immediately dive before air defense systems could respond. He had no more than 20 seconds to do it. The onboard systems were outdated, the bomb connections unstable, and success depended on how far one could go armed with duct tape, a mobile tablet, and pure intuition. At 5:58, he pushed the throttle levers forward. The two Klimov RD-33 engines roared in unison, delivering over 18,000 pounds of thrust combined. The aircraft surged forward. In the gray dawn sky, it lifted from the ground, carrying not just a combat load, but a nation's determination and technical boldness. By 6:15, the aircraft was rushing over Ukrainian territory at an altitude of about 50 meters. Its airflow bent the fields, scattered flocks of birds, and made wheat stalks sway. The pilot kept his hands firmly on the controls, maneuvering between power lines, cell towers, and isolated buildings. There was no room for error. In such conditions, he was concealed by the sky, the terrain, and the curvature of the Earth itself. At that height, the radar horizon did not exceed 25 kilometers. Meanwhile, Russian air defense systems, such as the S-400 complex, were capable of detecting and destroying targets up to 400 kilometers away, but only if they could see them. The entire calculation relied on Russian radars missing the low-flying object. But ahead lay the riskiest part of the mission, ascending into the sky, entering radar range, and releasing the payload during a narrow window of time. The target, marked on the tablet screen, yes, a standard tablet mounted to the instrument panel, glowed with a white marker. The building of the Federal Security Service in the city of Glotovo, just 5 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The AASM hammer bombs attached to the wings became a symbol of both brilliance and desperation in this attack. The French weapon, designed for NATO aircraft, was entirely incompatible with Soviet standards. Soviet avionics of the late 1980s had no knowledge of GPS or how to transmit target coordinates. Ukrainian engineers tackled this task with remarkable ingenuity. In Kyiv workshops, adapters were manually assembled, power cables connected, GPS antennas installed, and all of it wired into the French electronics, under voltage, under risk, and under the constant fear of failure. The AASM hammer bomb itself was a pinnacle of engineering. The cost of a single such bomb exceeded the price of an average apartment in Kyiv. It combined inertial and satellite navigation and was equipped with its own jet booster, which activated after release and accelerated the munition to nearly supersonic speed. But all this technology was useless without reliable navigation data connection, and that is where the tablet came in. It served as a translator between the world of old Soviet hardware and the modern digital era. It was a digital miracle held together with duct tape.
At 6:22, the pilot reached the initial release point and sharply pulled the control stick. The aircraft began to climb at a 45-degree angle. The altimeter spun wildly, 1,000 meters, 2, 3, 4, 5. The cockpit was filled with the shriek of a warning signal. All enemy radars within hundreds of kilometers had detected him. From the east, a fire control system activated and target acquisition began. The pilot had no more than 45 seconds. The entire plan relied on surprise. Russian operators did not expect anyone to attempt such an attack. Madness itself became Ukraine's main trump card. At an altitude of 5,000 meters, he pressed the release button. Two bombs separated from the aircraft with a distinct dull thud. Instantly, the pilot flipped over, diving into a steep maneuver, dropping down and veering away. The two bombs, meanwhile, gained speed, their jet engines activated, propelling them to nearly the speed of sound. Now they were flying autonomously, using GPS navigation and an inertial guidance system. Their path had been pre-programmed, and they made hundreds of micro-adjustments every second to hit the target precisely. At the same time, the Russian air defense system in Belgorod Oblast detected two objects. Senior Lieutenant Smirnov, commander of the battery, saw two signals on the screen rising from the southwest. Target type: fighter jets, presumably Ukrainian. The S-400 system required about 10 seconds to acquire and prepare for launch. After that, another 3 seconds, and the missiles launched. Two missiles of the 48N6 type went airborne, but they were launched toward a sector already vacated by the pilot. At that moment, the aircraft was once again flying at an altitude of less than 100 meters, maneuvering between forests and hills. The missiles, designed to engage high-altitude targets, failed. They overshot and activated their fuses in empty air. The aircraft returned to base. Meanwhile, the bombs continued their flight. At an altitude of 8,000 meters, they began their descent, heading toward the roof of the building in Glotovo. Each of them was not merely a chunk of iron, but a high-tech device. In the nose section was the control unit, a ring laser gyroscope and GPS modules. In the center section, a solid fuel engine. In the tail, complex aerodynamic fins capable of reacting to every course correction with accuracy to 1/100th of a second. At 6:27, the first bomb reached the target. The radar fuse detected the roof approaching and initiated the detonation timing calculation. As a result, a directed explosion was triggered inside the building. The charge created a jet of molten metal that cut through concrete slabs and steel beams. After 0.025 seconds, the main explosion followed. 87 kilograms of explosives turned into a wave of fire that destroyed the entire upper part of the building. The second bomb arrived after 0.3 seconds, striking a point 20 meters away from the first. By that moment, the structure of the building had already been weakened. The second explosion finished off the load-bearing elements. A progressive collapse occurred. One floor after another caved in, each new impact amplifying the kinetic force of destruction. In less than 5 seconds, the Federal Security Service building in Glotovo was reduced to a heap of dust and rubble.
All of these events held not only military, but also psychological significance. For the first time in all the years of war, Ukraine struck a target that was considered untouchable. This was not just a bombing run, it was a technological and ideological challenge. The use of a tablet in the cockpit, French weaponry, a Soviet platform, and American satellites became the symbol of a new kind of warfare, a war of improvisation, adaptation, and determination. Judging by the official silence, the Russian authorities were caught off guard. No one expected a strike of such precision, carried out with such audacity and against such a target. Now, within the ranks of the command, a question will arise: how to protect critical sites if the enemy is capable of acting so unconventionally? This operation serves as a reminder that in war, victory does not belong only to those who have more missiles, but also to those who are capable of thinking differently. Share your opinion.